Hello everyone, I am Jimuel, and for the introduction, the Arroceros Forest Park is a riverside urban forest park in Manila, Philippines, located on Antonio Villegas Street in the Central District of Ermita. The last forest in Manila is considered as the Arroceros Urban Forest Park, considering the lost land of Manila, and the park became the subject of controversy in 2003 when then Mayor Lito Atienza ordered its closure to give way to the construction of a school administration building and teachers' dormitory on a portion of the park despite protests from conservation groups. The park is home to more than 3,000 trees, including 60 native species, and serve as a rest stop for migratory birds. Often dubbed the Lung of Manila, Arroceros has been shown to mitigate the city's notorious air pollution and plays a key role in minimizing flooding, another of the capital's litany of problems.
So for our objectives, we have 6. First is to conserve and study the biodiversity within Arroceros Forest Park. Second is to raise awareness and promote environmental education. So for our third objectives is to implement habitat restoration projects and initiatives to protect endangered species. Key examples of the endangered species that needed to be protected in the Arroceros Forest Park are the birds like Arctic warbler, zebra dove, black-necked oriole, yellow-vented bulbul or Pycnonotus guavier, and Asian glossy starling. So moving on to our fourth objectives is to aim balanced conservation efforts with the park's role in enhancing the overall quality of life in the urban environment. Moving on to our fifth is to preserve and showcase the cultural and historical significance of the park. And lastly, the sixth is to ensure that the park is accessible and welcoming to all. For our next topic, the statement of the problem will be discussed by Sia Alde.
So let's proceed to the statement of the problem. Number 1. How has urban development impacted the biodiversity and ecosystem of Arroceros Natural Park? This question refers to the growing population in Manila. Number 2. What specific conservation measures are currently in place and how effective are they in preserving the park's ecological integrity? 3. How can the city government improve community engagement in the park's conservation efforts? Of course, aside from living near the forest, the community needs to engage in the conservation efforts. 4. How can sustainable urban planning be integrated to balance the needs of development and the imperative to protect and enhance the natural features of Arroceros Natural Park? Aside from that case, of course, the park also needs to provide different activities and features of the natural park. 5. To what extent does Arroceros Natural Park contribute to the overall resilience of the city's ecosystem, especially in the face of climate change and urbanization? Basically, it's all about the benefits of the forest park. 6. How can educational initiatives can be enhanced to raise awareness about the ecological significance of Arroceros Natural Park and foster a sense of responsibility among the public? In terms of protecting it, the public needs to learn about the importance of the park. Lastly, what partnerships and collaborations can be forged to ensure sustainable funding and support for the ongoing conservation efforts of Arroceros Natural Park? Of course, aside from the community, the park needs to partner and collab with a different company to help the conservation movements in the park. The next reporter is Ms. Eleazar to discuss the tourism law aligns to the Arroceros Natural Park.
Thank you, Ms. Alde. So for the tourism or the environmental law, these are the applicable laws in the Arroceros Forest Park. Number 1 is the Republic Act number 7586 or the National Integrated Protected Areas System Act This law aims to establish a comprehensive system of protected areas to preserve biological diversity, promote sustainable development, and ensure the involvement of local communities in the management of these areas. Next, second, the Republic Act number 9147 or the Wildlife Resources Conservation and Protection Act. This law focuses on the conservation and protection of the wildlife resources and their habitats, ensuring the sustainable use and preventing their exploitation. Third is the local environmental laws. Manila City ordinances or regulations specific to the management, conservation, and protection of parks, green spaces, and urban forests within the city limits may also apply the Arroceros Forest Park. Lastly, forestry laws and regulations. There might be specific regulations under the Philippine forestry laws related to the management of forested areas, which could influence the protection and conservation efforts within the Arroceros Forest Park. These laws typically covers aspects such as the protection of biodiversity, prevention of illegal logging or wildlife poaching, conservation of natural habitats, and sustainable management resources within the park. And for the most current detailed information on the environmental laws specifically governing Arroceros Forest Park, I recommend consulting the Manila City Government and the DNR or the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources or the legal expert specializing the environmental laws in the Philippines. They can provide you with the latest legal provisions and guidelines concerning the environmental protection within the park. And next will be the historical value of the Arroceros Forest Park discussed by Mr. Pascual.
As for the historical background, Arroceros Forest Park in Manila, Philippines, with roots dating back to the Spanish colonial era, transitioned from a neglected post-World War II dump site to a vibrant green space through the Manila Greening Project in the late 1980s. Established in 1993, the park faces development threats but remains a crucial haven for biodiversity, including endangered tree species, birds, and butterflies. It also has evolved into a hub for cultural events, educations, and environmental awareness. Arroceros Forest Park symbolizes urban conservation in Manila, reflecting the ongoing efforts to balance development and environmental preservation. Here's a quick fact about Arroceros Forest Park in Manila. In 1574, during a Chinese pirate assault on Manila, Chinese inhabitants aligned with the pirates within Intramuros, assaulting friars and causing destruction. Following the Spanish victory, these Chinese residents were relocated to the outskirts of Manila, also known as Parian. This event marked a deterioration in Spanish-Chinese relations, foreshadowing a later massacre at Parian de Arroceros in 1603. As the Spanish colonial government prepared for a Chinese pirate invasion that did not materialize, the Chinese residents of Parian rebelled, anticipating an assault from the Spaniards, fearing a recurring of their excursion in 1574. Their fears were justified as the Spanish massacred 20,000 Chinese in the Parian area, now situated around what is known as Arroceros Forest Park.
To conclude all of this, from the objectives, statement of the problems, historical background, and the tourism law about the park, we have learned how important this park is, especially in the city of Manila, since it's literally the last lung of Manila City. We still have to maintain and preserve it, and if possible, to enlarge the area of the park. Creating sustainable urban green spaces in areas full of pollution because of different kinds of transportation is crucial for the greatness of the city. We also have learned that the Arroceros Park is not only important for nature, but for history as well. So, protecting this park is salient naturally and historically. And because of that, we have several recommendations that will be discussed by Ms. Lorenzo.
So for our recommendations are increase awareness among the public about its ecological importance and the services it provides such as clean air, recreational activities. The park would benefit from the establishment of a city ordinance for its protection and increased support from the government and other stakeholders. And next is avoid planting mahogany since it has to do with affecting the acidity of the soil, thereby affecting the growth of other plants. It just so happens that the soil with a serving of acidity that mahogany loves so much isn't so good for other organisms. This makes them very invasive and able to choke out other plants. And next is grow more native tree species, especially the endangered ones like Nara, Ilang-ilang, and Java plum. And next is avoid planting the invasive plants little by little because some trees are not good for local trees and plant more of those endemic in the Philippines. And next is educate and raise awareness of issues impacting the environment upon which we all depend, as well as actions we can take to improve and sustain it because the future of biodiversity will depend on the global collective action of an educated society, including efforts to promote local and indigenous knowledge of biodiversity. And lastly is develop and maintain permanent forests, tree parks, and watersheds with a total size of at least 2% of the city's entire area. And next, Mr. Horado will summarize our topic. Thank you.
This is the summarization of our report. The Arroceros Forest Park is an urban forest situated in Manila's Central District of Ermitas, Philippines on Antonio Villegas Street. In February 2022, the Arroceros Urban Forest Park was reopened after a 5-hectare expansion, expanding its 2.51-hectare size. The Loton area in Manila's historic area is home to the city's only natural known as Manila Last Lang, providing fresh air for commuters. Arroceros Forest Park in Manila, Philippines is currently under various environmental laws and regulations aimed at conserving natural resources and protecting green spaces. To stay updated on environmental laws governing Arroceros Forest Park, consult the Manila City Government DNR or a legal expert in the Philippines. They can provide the latest provisions and guidelines for environmental protection within the park. Thank you.